everybody? What's happening, everybody?
Hello, hello, hello. On a purely professional note, at the end of this call, I'd like in the comments somebody to please tell me if I can pull off my virtual background. Because I told myself I would never attempt it again, but I really like this one. But if I do look like a floating head, please be candid. And also, please make sure you're muted because, you know, Craig could be mid-sentence and we'll have somebody's smiling face brushing their teeth. And we don't want that on YouTube for 30
No,
years.
and you know how angry Craig gets when he's interrupted.
Exactly. He's a hard taskmaster. I have Craig Hart here for you today. Now, I'm going to be candid. And you know me, I do the bare minimum research before every call, because what I do is I like to go on impressions I get of people, because that fascinates me, because it's all about branding and what we show the world. And the impression I always got of Craig, and branding you're obviously doing well because it was only increased when I went on your website, it was confirmed, is that you've got serious guts. It's you were always coming up with a different idea and you just jumped in and just did it. And I mean, I know everything we post on social media makes it look easy, but you really make it look easy. And you seem to just generally enjoy people, really enjoy other people, really enjoy the process. I'm fascinated because on your website, it became clear that you do jump to all sorts of varied occupations and you do them successfully. Whereas some people just go from one thing, they're scanners. I think it's the Barbara Scher idea of scanners. They go from one thing to another and they never completely stick to anything. So it all ends up at like a mishmash of hobbies. But you create actual businesses, but you're also an artist, and every business you create has an artistic edge to it. So I'm really curious as to where you actually started and how you became a person. What informed your personality to have you end up the way you are?
Well, first of all, about skipping from thing to thing, Jack Benny would say that people who change, he said he's done all these things and people came to him and said, what's the matter? Can't you hold a steady job? So that's what I feel like a lot of times. But I was thinking about this last night because I knew that you were going to ask a question similar to this. Think about my path to now, and I started laughing at how circuitous it actually was. So I'm going to try to follow it through here like I did last night.
Yes, please.
I may get lost somewhere in the early 1990s, so if I do,
But getting lost in the 90s, you can't get better than that.
We won't go into why I might have gotten lost in the 90s, but that's so when I was a kid, I was always interested in old-time radio and recording and radio dramas and audiobook. And, you know, my heroes growing up, they weren't sports figures or anything. They were people like George Guidall and people like that. And that's who I looked up to. And when I was a kid, I started making my own recordings. And then my older brother moved out and I got access to his bedroom and I turned it into a little studio. And was recording.
How old are you talking? How old were you when you turned it into a studio?
13.
I love that. I've got a picture of little 13-year-old Craig.
No, yeah, I built a little tiny booth. I didn't understand like sound treatment or anything like that, but I built walls and I had a Foley station. You know, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that term, where in the old time radio shows they would have live sound effects, and live sound effects, it's called Foley. So I had a box of broken up gravel where I could make footsteps. I had two halves of a coconut for horse hooves and crumpled up cassette tape for footsteps in grass and whatnot. the whole 9 yards. I'd make little radio dramas, and even started recording little audiobooks like Louis L'Amour and Alistair MacLean on cassette tape just for fun. But I didn't have any idea that one could do this for a living. And at the time, audiobooks weren't as much of a thing. They were really starting to come into their own, but they weren't so much. Only the stars were doing them. But I was also interested in music. So what I thought, I was like, I want to be taking piano for a number of years, and I decided I want to be a concert pianist. That was my thing. That was what I was going to do. So I started doing that, got a few gigs, and then carpal tunnel struck. And
How old are you now?
I'm 40.
No, not right this minute. So
Oh.
no, I wouldn't be that rude. I meant, how old are you now that you've got carpal tunnel?
Oh, I was probably 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm following
Anybody,
the path.
good luck. I'm already getting lost. But if you anybody who knows a professional musician, if you're going, especially a classical pianist, the rigors of the practice regimen are just absolutely insane. You're building a repertoire, you're maintaining your technique, and all. And for some reason, my wrists just couldn't handle it, and so they just gave out. I had the surgery, and while I could still play, it was obvious I was not going to be able to maintain hours a day of doing this.
Were you crushed? How did that feel? Were you like really scared and crushed?
Yeah, I was, because I had dedicated myself to this. I had Carnegie Hall on the sites, right? Even though all I had done at that point was, I don't know, weddings and dinner parties and stuff like that. And it wasn't anything great, but that's where I envisioned myself.
At that
going.
age, that's like where your dreams are the strongest, and you're
exactly. I mean, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And so that's what I was doing, and then suddenly came to a sudden halt. And so I'm left wondering, what do I do from here? For a while, I did nothing. But one of the other things that I've been doing as a hobby as a kid is writing, and it's like, well, I can do that. Yeah, it's kind of similar to playing in a way where you're using the same kind of muscles, but it's not as strenuous. And if nothing else, you can get, speech to text was starting to come out, and I can do that. So I started writing, started putting out a couple little books, and then I get into publishing. I was editor-in-chief of a lit magazine for a while. There was Northern Light Publishing, where I started publishing not only my own stuff, but stuff put out by other people.
So can I go back to the writing? So when you started writing, did you have the passion and the feeling you had when you were doing the music, or was it kind of like, I've got to do something?
It was, at first it was, I couldn't listen to piano music while writing because I'd get too upset. Because it's like I wasn't doing that thing, I was doing this thing.
Yeah.
But over time, it's supplanted. And now that I'm looking back on it, I would have hated being a professional pianist. I don't think it would have been for me. So ultimately, I think it worked out fine. But the writing started.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I've got so many questions. Were you still writing when you went into publishing? Did it become a passion for you later on?
Yeah, it really did. And like I said, I had been writing from an early, like mom was a writer. And so as from very young age, I was writing. I just didn't think it was going to be a thing for me. I always thought it was going to be music. And so I never thought of it that way. And so it took me a while to change my thinking and realize that, that was really the first major curveball, I should say, that life threw at me. So when you're that age, it takes a while to understand that things aren't necessarily going to go your way.
But you adapted. How long would you say it took before you moved to writing? How long did you give yourself of?
Probably a year.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's a pretty quick turnaround.
I'm trying to think what I was doing. I've always been pretty resilient in that regard. So that's lucky. So I was and during that time I had a library job. And so I was worked at the library, putting books back on the shelf.
So publishing. So You're better than I. When I had my first curveball, I just remember endless days of watching Magnum PI reruns and eating. At least you've got another job. So
Well, at least
when
you
you,
had I grew up without a television. I didn't even have that to comfort me. So,
oh no, really?
yeah, we didn't have TV.
Because your parents were,
They're
gosh,
very religious, very religious. So there was no movies, no TV, nothing like that. And
in
so
a way,
my
maybe it helped you start to make your own entertainment. Oh, you poor
yes.
thing.
Now, and my two siblings are also considerably older, and so I was always entertaining myself. I created my own board games that could be played by one player because there was nobody there to play with. But it worked out fine because I was, it really has held me in good stead in terms of creating my own universe, my own thing, and not being afraid to fail and just going for it. So it
I
all
think
worked
you
out nicely
probably,
in the end.
because I think TV kind of, now that I think about it, I remember in school when I'd have a boring class, I figured that the class was 30 minutes long and my favorite TV series were 30 minutes long. So I would replay the TV series in my head instead of listen to class. So in a way,
Right.
the way you went, actually having to use your brain probably was healthier. What about your kids? Are they allowed to watch TV when they get older?
Hell yeah. I'm not that good of a parent. I don't know what my mom did. Are you kidding me? It's
Okay,
insane.
publishing. Are we
Yes.
talking how did you start off? We're talking indie publishing, kind of like all our writers do, or did you just go straight to a big company? What do you mean by publishing? What brought you to publishing from writing? That takes guts in itself.
I I have a problem, and that is when I have an idea, it starts snowballing. And so like, oh, I could write my own things. I could publish my own things. I could publish other people's things, and it just kind of went crazy. And so I put up a website, and after I learned kind of some of the ins and outs of the industry, and I was surprised and shocked at how many people were interested in essentially gaining access to that knowledge because they didn't know how to do it, and I did. And I was like, well, we'll do it, and we'll split the royalties. I'll publish it, and we'll see how it goes. And there was a lot of submissions, tons of submissions,
How
and
did you know how to do it? It's not easy. I mean, I go on those writer sites. I can't understand a word they're saying.
trial and error with my own stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just not being afraid to fail. I mean, I've failed so many times. It's absurd. But that's okay.
Yeah, that they say it's a secret to success.
Yeah.
Did you get better
Having no
at it? Or
shame. You're right.
were
Having
you
no shame,
always
not
good
being
at it
afraid to
though?
fail.
I mean,
Always good at what now?
were you always good at failing?
Oh, I'm very good at failing, yes. No. I was hold on, I'm trying to open my beer. I was extremely introverted. Still am, believe it or not. But I was to the point, put it this way, when I first went to college, the first college I went to was a small private Bible college. It was the only college people in my church were allowed to attend. And the president of the school thought it was hilarious that I was so easily embarrassed. And so he would come over at lunch and stand behind me at the table until I turned red, and then he would walk away. So, which now that I think about it, like, what an ass.
I know. Talk about give the kid a complex for life.
Yeah. But I mean, it's stuff like that. And now I just don't care, and I failing doesn't bother me, especially because when in today's world, you're failing in public all the time. Put something out online and everybody's going to know.
Yeah, it's
But
like being an actor, auditions. It's like our
right,
job to fail. That's our job,
exactly.
to be
Right.
rejected. Because you
You
get
fail
rejected
100,
90% of the time.
fail 100 times and you succeed one. That's pretty good.
And
you're doing
writers
okay.
too. Who was that writer, the famous one? They got all their rejection letters, and I love that writer. I can never remember their name. They posted them all over their wall. They were so proud of him. Every single one was like a badge of honor.
I don't remember, but I know those, like, they paper their entire apartment or
Yeah,
bedroom in rejection slips.
I love that. I love that. So, okay, so you started, was that Northern Lake, that one that you started?
Yes, Northern Lake Publishing.
How long ago
Mhm.
was it? It was a long time ago then.
Yeah, I don't even know, because there was a different iteration prior to that that sort of morphed into. So it's tough to know exactly when the start date actually was. Um, yeah, so it started out, like I say, the Lit magazine, and that was sort of under the umbrella of Northern
Wait,
Lake, and then it changed to
I
books.
missed the Lit magazine. Okay,
Mhm.
when was the Lit? Okay, so you're writing books. Had you already written books at this point?
A couple of very terrible ones, yes.
Okay, and then you started the publishing company,
Hmm.
and then you started a Lit magazine?
The Lit magazine was first.
And also, S.J. Varengo says, I think the first Northern Lake book came out in 2018. So that's a
That
long
is,
time.
yeah, second iteration, yeah. And so the first one was called Sweatshop Publications, and it was spelled with two P's and an E because it was classy, you see.
How'd you come up
But
with Northern Lake?
I grew up in Michigan, and the lake is all in Michigan, because it's all we have are the lakes. So the logo is a sailboat and all that stuff. So that's
I'm going to ask you a question that might be annoying, so just shut me down. Why, and I swear you do, why do I think people from Michigan sound like they're Canadian and people from Canada sound like they're Michiganian? I hear the
um,
same accent when I hear Michigan and Canada, and I don't know
yeah,
why.
no clue, because we're the same people, I suppose. Only
Have,
Canadians are a lot nicer than Michiganders, and Iowans are nicer than Michiganders as well, which is where I'm now living.
so have you not heard the similarity? Have you not been told that before?
Oh, I hear it all the time. I hear it. There are people who have it much worse than I do. Barb, I'm getting in the car. And
I
that's what
love
I hear, right?
that. I love that.
So I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad.
The thing about being a foreigner away for so long is you start to love very American things. I mean, I'm from the West
Yeah.
Coast, so I never even got them very American things when I was there, but I love them. I love the idea of Americana. Ohio sounds like the most American thing on earth. Um, Bill Bryson traveled to Ohio, and I just was fascinated. I
Bill
love the
Bryson is
idea.
from Ohio, right?
Is he? Is that why?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I love hearing him talk about Ohio and I think Vermont. I used to listen to his old audiobooks, funny enough. Okay, so back to the important subject. So Craig, so we've got the publishing company. You've written a few books. You have the magazine, and you've got other authors that you're publishing for. And are
Yes.
you, how did how did you make the leap into narration?
So, yeah, here we go. Um, my living arrangements have largely depended on my wife's career. She's a psychologist who works for public universities. And so, where the best job is for her, that's typically where we go. Job opened up a director for her in Illinois. And so we moved to Illinois. And while there, I was, trying to get my feet and figure out what my place was again and all that stuff. And I saw in the paper an advertisement for volunteer positions at Northern Illinois Radio Information Service. And what that is a service that broadcasts daily newspapers and magazines, local, over the airwaves to the visually impaired. So you volunteer, you go in and you read the local newspaper online. They can tune in and listen. So I went and applied and started doing that. After a while, the director there left, and I moved into her job. And while I was the director at NIRIS, Northern Illinois Radio Information Service, I
Wait,
started
after
learning
how long? After how long?
6 months.
You were there for 6 months and you became director.
I don't think anybody else wanted it, to be honest. Like, it didn't pay well. I mean,
No, but
and we're responsible for all these volunteers. Who wants it?
it's an important job though.
Well, I enjoyed it. It was not
Yeah.
only is it something that doing what I liked, but it was such a service. I still am pretty passionate about it. But being the director there, I started learning some of the ins and outs of things, and it was connected. It was a service of the local national public radio station, WNIJ. And so it's connected to NPR as well. got involved in that kind of thing, and that started getting me more interested in not only radio, but kind of reignited that part of my mind that was still a kid in his basement making
The
radio.
little boy with the studio.
He's back. He came back, you know.
And are you still doing the writing and the publishing at the same time as you're doing this?
Yes. So the Lit magazine had been fading away at this point. So that one's falling off in favor of audio and replacing it. So I started thinking about that a little bit. And around that time, then I started getting involved in podcasts. And I did a video podcast for a while called The Games and Writers Show, where I would interview writers and actors and voice people. And when I started talking to these voice people, then that sort of solved the question I had when I was a kid of how would one actually make money at this? And then they started answering that question, and that a light bulb went on. It's like, oh, you know what? What better way to marry book/writing and recording, reading, audiobook narration? And that's when I really started getting involved in audiobook narration and discovered this huge world, and that it was actually a thing, that it wasn't just George Guidell and a couple others that I listened to. It was Tom Steckschulte for it was a lot of people. Huge world while also a small world, but it was a lot more than I thought. And about a year and a half ago, I hit the ground running and took everything I could get.
So you didn't do any voiceover before, you just went straight to what you loved?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started voiceover, and I still do a little bit here and there, but not very much. It's audiobooks. I love the art of audiobook.
So what's the verdict? Writing, audiobooks, musician, publisher? What's your all-time heart and passion and soul?
Well, I'll never not be a writer. I think that's, once that gets into your blood, it's there. But the audiobooks, especially if I'm, get a project that's a good, well-written book, it's hard to beat that. It's hard to beat that as well.
I have a question. Fiona wants to know, are you writing anything right now?
Yes. So I don't know if SJ, also known as Scott, Scorch, Scoot, Screet, whatever I decide to call him that particular day, Varengo is still here, but
he's the one that wrote that book that you had an audition for, isn't he?
Yep. And
he's
so he's
great
an awesome
writer. Brilliant
Yeah.
writer, wonderful. Don't know where you are, Scott, because I can't see the whole screen, but so
fantastic.
Go ahead,
and he and I are co-written a couple of things, and we've created what's called E2 Books, e2books.com, which is basically marrying our projects together. And so a lot of what we're going to put out coming up is stuff that we have co-written.
Are you guys partners? How did you guys meet?
We met, he's so much better at telling this story than I am, but we met on Twitter.
He says he's hiding, so.
About 10-ish years ago. It was just a random, we didn't know each other. We didn't have any mutual friends, nothing. I had a humor blog at the time. And so I was sending out a funny tweet about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his, whatever she was, housekeeper, whatever, nanny, making fun of that. And he replied with some off the wall tweet, and I replied, and then we thought each other was hilarious. And we found out that each other wrote a blog, and the rest is history. So it was kind of one of those things where you find that a person who they think the same things are funny that you think at the same time, and you know that you're basically mated for life.
I have to say, some of the narrators I've met, especially the ones when I first started, they're like my friends for life. I consider them better friends than most of my actual friends. You know what I mean? Because
let's not even get started on family.
Yeah, you got to put it out there. No, love the family in case you ever see this, by the way.
Like
Families,
I said, I have no shame.
Fiona's actually, hey, Fiona, great minds think alike. I was actually going to ask this one, but Fiona gets credit. How do you balance your time schedule between being a full-time dad, narrator, editor, writer?
Very carefully, a lot of tears. So the schedule with the kids keeps changing, so I've had to balance that. One thing I have found is that the more prep I do for projects, whether it's writing or whether it's audiobook, whether it's editing other people's audio, and I do a lot of that as well, is the more preparation I do, the better the project goes. And I know it's so easy, especially for me, to just want to dive into it right away and do it. But I've started sitting down and figuring out, if I have X amount of projects I have to do by this date. If I do this amount every day, I will get there. If I know my minimum amount. That's per finished hours editing, that's per finished hours reading, that's words per day on whatever writing project I'm doing. And I make a spreadsheet, and in my spreadsheet I have the date, and I have a little code that counts down the days. So I can go in there and it says you have 18 days left on this, you have 15 days left on that, and it also figures out what I need to do on that particular day to do it. And so yeah, it takes a lot.
Sorry, but are you realistic about interruptions and things coming up? And I say as I interrupt you, but are you able to realistically plan your time that way, especially with kids?
Yeah, well, I've been meeting the deadlines, so I suppose so. But I will have to tell you that I could probably give myself more time. I feel kind of like the doctor's office when they double book just in case somebody cancels. So I do tend to do that, and that costs, which means I just stay up later one night. So, I mean, I work all day or in the morning, then I take the kids to work, and I come back into work, and I go get them, bring them back, feed dinner, get into bed, and I go back to work at night. So it's not a 9 to 5. It's more like a 6 to 12.
We've got someone wanting to know if you can share your spreadsheet template with them.
I guess. Yeah.
The thing I've learned about spreadsheet templates, though, do you not find this? I live on a spreadsheet, and it's like my life, and I count down jobs and everything. Every time I try to share it with someone, they look slightly like a deer caught in the headlights. Like,
it only
because
makes sense to me.
You know what I mean? They hear about it. It sounds magical, but what they don't know is you have to actively. You're the one doing the spreadsheet. You're the one creating the formulas. So it's like.
Well, and that's what I mean by it. You're taking a lot of time up front. It's not as simple as just plugging it in.
Yeah.
I wish it were, but it does take a lot of planning time.
I'm supposed to, SJ says, Daniela, please let Craig know that Miles came in the room when he heard his voice, tail wagging madly. I'm assuming Miles is a friend of both of yours?
Miles is the official Northern Lake audio dog. He's the president dog, and Humphrey is the vice president dog.
And have you and SJ met in real life?
Yeah, he finally dragged his sorry butt over here. What was it, a couple summers ago, prior to the apocalypse, and we got along as well as we suspected we might. Went out. So
what do you think about the apocalypse? Is it going to give writers inspiration, or is it going to?
Well, if Amazon keeps refusing to let indie authors publish anything about it, then no, it's not going to help at all. They may have relaxed that.
They're not allowed to publish anything about the apocalypse.
Not early on, no. If you start, they thought you were capitalizing on COVID, and they would take it down.
Did they actually say to you, you're not allowed to write a book about this subject?
No, they would just take it down. You know how
with
Amazon
no reason.
Is. Yeah, and it didn't happen to me personally because I wasn't writing about COVID, but there were people who were posting about it. And, you know, like I said, I think they've probably relaxed that now. This was earlier on that they were doing that. But yeah, it was another one of Amazon's little things that they do. But...
Well, I'm naive. I really am. That's a shock to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, see, how much of your time does that all take? The ins and outs and people asking questions, your writers asking questions, and because everything that you've taken on seems straightforward and you can budget it in your time, your publishing, your narration, but then there's the thing I never took into account when I started Joe, and everything I've ever started, I never ever think about this. There's the human admin element on the side, the writers asking you questions, the having to know what books are going to go through, having to know the new Amazon rules, which change every day. How do you deal with that? Do you allocate time for that? Do you have an admin day?
I do that when I can't do anything else. So after the twins are home and eating dinner, whatnot, get them set up with dinner. I can't narrate, I can't edit audio. So I'll often answer emails. And I will have to admit that emails do sometimes fall to the bottom of the list with things. So people who have emailed me in the past probably have known this. There are times when they have to remind me, like, remember when I asked you about this? I was trying to think if there's anybody
Yeah,
here
well,
who has done that.
because
Terry Davis may have fallen into that at one point or not.
SJ says also Craig has not slept since 2015.
It's true.
But
Yeah, well, yeah,
I'm
ever
the
since the twins were
opposite,
born.
though. You putting the emails last and doing your other stuff first is probably better for you, because I jump on every email. Like, I don't miss an email.
Right.
And guess what that is? That's reactive, and it's not great for the schedule.
Yeah, that's not your planning, because you didn't
Yeah.
plan those emails, did you? That's
Yeah.
something it's kind of the same, although emails from people are more important, but it's sort of like getting distracted by Facebook, a notification. Got to check that. No, turn it off.
Yeah, that's what they say about checking. You're never supposed to check things, your email and Facebook, first thing when you wake up, because you're
Right.
giving yourself a subconscious message that the rest of the world's needs are more important than your own. Do you have a morning ritual?
Yeah, I check my email and Facebook. I really
I do
do.
too.
I do, I have to admit. And then I have coffee, and if I have time, I'll maybe do a little bit of audio editing, do some just administrative stuff, like look at contracts or whatever. Then I get the kids to school. That's usually mine.
What do you think, Craig, for a person that doesn't have this, maybe somebody, because a lot of people in the audiobook world are people that have jumped into second careers. They've got the guts to do something they've always dreamt of doing, and they'd love to be able to be entrepreneurial, or they get ideas. I see people that like this all the time. They get ideas and they discount them. But if narrators are anything, they're able to reinvent themselves, or we wouldn't be doing this job. What would you say to someone that hasn't had years of kind of work on their mindset, just adapt, be flexible? What advice would you give them to be able to start to get guts, to do what you do, to maybe take the first steps? What would you advise them to do?
So I guess what I would say is to do maybe what I did back when I was first starting to be a writer and do author events and whatnot, which I was scared to death to do. Little
What's
story.
an author event?
Like you go present your book, you give an author talk, and then you plead with people to buy your book.
Oh, like the things like when they go to the
book signings.
Yeah. So you're not talking the festivals where they're all.
I mean, it could be that, but in my case, it was individual author events where I would get up and do a talk, and then do a book signing and all of that. Terrifying. And I had somebody at a library say, "We have a spot coming up. Do you want to do it?" Well, I hadn't even finished writing the book yet that I was being asked to present, but I agreed to do it, and then I was committed, so I had to finish the book, and I had to go do the scary thing that I had said I would do. So if this is what you want, commit yourself to doing it, and then do it. Because if you wait till you're ready, you'll probably never do it. There'll always be an excuse not to do it. You'll never be good enough to do it. You'll never have the best equipment to do it. Your booth won't be the best, blah, blah, blah.
People do that with speed dating all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
We do with everything that's scary to us.
They're like, I know people that have we started out together, 5 years ago, and it was, I don't have enough books to do the speed dating. And now it's 5 years later and they've got hundreds of books. Well, it's not quite enough.
Exactly.
Soon I'll have enough.
It'll never be enough.
Yeah, that's like me and my diet. Eventually, I'm one diet away from being a supermodel.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So commit yourself, preferably in a way that would be publicly humiliating to back out.
Oh, definitely. That's a must. If you only embarrass yourself, it doesn't count.
Do you get over? I mean, has anything gone terribly wrong that I mean, you barely remember the things that go wrong, do you?
No, I can remember some. They're awful. Uh, um, well, yeah, I remember a couple of examples. One was a podcast I did. It was absolutely terrible. Sound like a bumbling moron. Can't even listen to it. In fact, I tried to scrub it from the internet, and I'm sure it's still out there somewhere.
What was so bad about it?
I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was talking about, and I was pretending I did, and it was obvious I didn't. So
Did you have guests on, or was it just you?
I was the guest.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can do when it's not your property to get her taken care of.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've done burlesque. I mean, after a while, you just go so far out there that, like, there's no going to shame. But the thing is, I believe what you're saying. I really, really believe what you're saying. Sometimes you have to just throw yourself out there. Just let it happen. And because you're telling the universe you're not scared. You know what I mean? You're backing yourself.
And there's something to be said for not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Either. Like, everybody's going to laugh at me. And like, I used to get into this thing where, what are people going to think about me? And then I realized that people aren't thinking about me. I'm not really that important. Exactly. I'm the only person who's going to be sitting around crying about my failure is me. Everybody else has moved on and they're not even thinking about it. So,
and I mean, look at our job. We talk to ourselves in our room by ourselves, scream, yell, cry, say disgusting things to ourselves.
Oh
if that doesn't teach us, you get overall shame eventually.
Well, yeah, and we like to pretend that it's just us there, but it's going to be listened to by who knows who. So
yeah, and like, you kind of don't care, do you, at the end of the day? Like,
not really. Or eventually you'll get to the point where you don't. I mean, I keep asking people, are you going to use, a pseudonym? And I never have and don't ever plan to, because I just, first of all, I resent being judged by other people. And so I refuse to let them do that to me. And secondly, I got to the point where as I say, for the fourth time, I don't really have that much shame anymore.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I confess, I've used pseudonyms my whole life.
Yeah.
I have no idea why. I would just lie about my name to people. Well, I fancied a guy once, and he thought I lied. I met him on a party line and said my name was Lisa, and got transferred to his school. So I had to lie and tell everyone at school my name was Lisa. And then another guy tattooed Lisa on his shoulder. And I was like, right, not my name. So, but
yeah, about
the shame thing, you know what I mean? I wouldn't do it for shame. Yeah. But it is fun to have different names.
No, sure.
Really, I need to edit that bit out, though. But yeah. So, a proper question on another subject. Fiona Windle would like to know, what is your dream? With all the things you're doing now, what is your final destination? So that would be a good horror movie.
Yeah. I mean, if it has to be work related, then I guess. Sorry, the comments are popping up. I'll try to ignore them from now on.
I know, I'm trying not to look at them now. Now that I've embarrassed myself. So yeah,
I don't know. I mean, professionally, I guess the goal keeps moving for me. Like a while back, I would have said, I want to publish 10 books. Well, I've done that. I want to get to 50 audiobooks. Well, I've done that. So where's the goal? Like, is it something ridiculous? Like I want to win an Audi or something? I mean,
I have a question for you. Actually, I was having this conversation with my accountability partner this morning, because I'm a goal girl. I want stuff, and I know what I want, and I want it, and that's it. And it bugs me if I don't get it. And that person said to me, if you don't ever get to work with this publisher, and even if you right now could only from now on work for like indie books for the rest of your life, would you be able to find a way to be happy in your art? Because I do believe I love my art.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, 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 because other people out there are getting to do it. And so if I'm doing something, I want to be good. I want to be up there. I want to be recognized and respected.
Mm-hmm.
And I was embarrassed saying it, but if I'm honest,
Mm-hmm.
it's really important to me to succeed
Mm-hmm.
in what I know I can be good at. But I do love it for the art. What is your opinion about success and what success means and how important outside recognition of your success is? How do you feel about that?
I'm so careful with it because if you put all of your eggs in one goal basket, once you reach that goal, then what do you do?
You get more goals,
Well, but there's
higher.
maybe, but there's an emptiness I feel that can come with that, you know?
That's what they said. That's what my accountability partner said.
Yeah. I mean, if it works for you, then that's great. I want to work for a certain publisher. Then that's fine. But at some point, like if we think about the end game, I don't want to, let me put it this way. I guess my ultimate goal is to have and maintain my independence in what I'm doing. I get a lot of pleasure from what I'm doing. If I didn't, I wouldn't do it. Um,
Being
and
your
so
own boss,
if I
though.
can, sure, if I can be my own boss and create an independent structure, or I can enjoy life and in a way, according to my own rules, that is a win for me. It's not working for a certain publisher. It's not necessarily even having a certain number of audiobooks, although I love seeing the number rise. I mean, that's just a thing. But the work is not the end game for me at all.
But okay, so what you described just now, you have that, right?
For the
You
most part.
have
I
that.
mean,
So what do you push yourself towards? Or do some people just not
well,
push themselves
my light
towards
went away.
something?
No, I push myself all the time, but I am pushing myself to increase. So, for example, if I'm talking about independence, sure, you could say I'm working independently, but I can't just move to wherever I want. I can't just go here. I can't just do that. I mean, there's no limit to independence. So if you're chasing independence, then that's a good goal to have. And that's what I want to be able to do, what I want to do, when I want to do it by doing what I love to do.
Okay.
And if I can do that and take my family with me, then I would be extremely happy. But right now,
Okay.
there are all kinds of limitations.
So it's still goalposts.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, but it's a goal that I don't know that I'll ever reach. And I'm okay with that because for me, the destination isn't the point. It's kind of the journey there. I feel like if I set a goal and a lofty goal and I reached it, that would be disastrous for me. Because one of the things why I do so many different things is because I'm never satisfied with what I'm doing. In a way, like there's always, not terms of the art and craft, but how I'm doing it and all of that. So to me, having an end game or end goal is scary. That frightens the hell out of me because if I got there, then I don't know.
Yeah, see, I think I might be formed by my diet mentality. But I say that I'm not joking because my whole life I've been like, that's the same with work and diet. I'm going to get to this weight. And I have
Mm.
gotten there. And then you just gain it back again and start all over. But you are always reaching for that ultimate life is going to be perfect when. I think it's kind of an American thing in a way.
Mm.
There's so many self-help books out there and everything. But I never actually, I'm hearing you say it now. I heard my accountability partner say it today. I think I'm a smart person. And I've never thought people like you existed. I mean that as a compliment,
Mm.
but but it's odd to think that your entire the way you're being, there are people out there that just don't even think about it.
Hmm.
that you think about. So do you think, so when you wake up in the daytime, are you thinking, you're not thinking about like, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do that to get to where I want to go? Or are you thinking about what you have to do to complete the day? Or are you thinking about what's going to be exciting around the corner? What do you think about to push you through the day?
There are certainly micro goals. Like I have to do, like I mentioned earlier, I need to do X amount of chapters. I need to do this and that to accomplish my minimum requirements for the day. But those are part of a bigger structure for me to accomplish what I'm getting toward, which is ultimate to have that independence to live a life according to my own rules.
And have you sat down and thought, right, if I want this, I would need this, this, and this to get to that end, was you don't have the end
Mhm.
goal.
Mhm.
That's so strange. It really is like I've met, okay, I'm trying to get into your head here, Craig. Hope you don't mind. So,
Wouldn't recommend it, but go ahead.
so would you say that you feel satisfied at the end of the day from what you've done? Because I tick things off on a box. I know exactly
Mhm.
where I am going to where and if I've succeeded or not at every point. And usually it's no. And but I'm going to do better tomorrow. But
Mm.
you don't do that then. Do you find, I'm wondering if your way of thinking affords you more satisfaction.
Not really. Um, I'm always I'm sad at the end of the day when it's over and I'm too tired to work because I love work. I love working.
Oh,
Um, and so even though I have minimum goals and that's what I need to do to stop from panicking because I have deadlines, but maybe that's part of the secret. Maybe it's just I love what I'm doing. And
yeah.
so the end goal doesn't matter so much to me because I mean, not the destination is less important than the journey in terms of what I'm doing. And because I have such a nebulous end goal, if you even want to call it that, but increasing quality of life for myself and my family is an ongoing prospect.
And then do you find yourself having time to do like personal development courses, creative in your brain, planning and dreaming time with your busy schedule?
Yeah, as I fall asleep, well, I do a lot of that. I do make time for coaching. I've taken quite a bit of coaching. So I do online courses as I have time to do. There's whether it's narration or on the writing publishing side, there's always more to learn, of course. And the other thing is that the industries are always changing, and so if you can't necessarily just stop learning because things will be different, and you may not know it. So you want to keep up on that kind of stuff. But again, that's the kind of thing a lot of times that I do when I can't do anything else.
I was thinking about legacy because I'm watching a lot of news and they're going on and on and on about legacy.
Hmm.
You're leaving a legacy for your kids. You're showing them an example of somebody that's got guts and that loves their work. I mean, wow, that's a
Well,
legacy.
that was the first thing that came to mind when you said end goals, but I didn't want to get into it because it sounded so silly or cliche. But I do sit and think about that quite a bit. You know, if we think about, he'll never watch this. So my brother has had a rough time of it, most of it of his own making, and his kids have suffered those consequences. And it's pretty clear that they are going to perpetuate this kind of thing because we kind of repeat what we see. We do this, we make the same mistakes and all of this stuff. And I see that, and then I see my own kids. And if I can create a situation where they are able to have a chance to succeed, if they see someone working hard, if they see someone making what I hope are the right decisions, then that is an impact that I will have on them and that they will hopefully pass on to their kids and their kids and their kids. So to me, that's a legacy. Like, okay, back in 2021, Mr. Hart set an example, and now 100 years later, yeah, it's still being felt. That to me would be something to be proud of. All
But
this, I mean, other stuff is fun, but
but the one thing you're teaching them that when I was made redundant and I knew I wanted to be a narrator, I had no example ever of
Mhm.
anyone doing what they loved and surviving. And I have friends in the same company desperate to get out, being offered redundancy and terrified to take it
Mhm.
because there's literally no belief that you can survive on your own without going to a job you hate. And a
Right.
massive, and I'm not even joking, seriously, a
Oh,
massive
I know
amount of
her.
this world, they believe that in order to survive, you have to do a job you hate and be
Mhm.
treated badly by a stranger that is like less qualified than you are for purposes of boosting their ego or whatever. And your children, if nothing else, I mean, if you dance around on the tabletops with lampshades on your head and high heels 24 hours a
Which
day
I
and
do.
drink too much,
Which
you
I
have
do.
shown your children that it
Yeah.
is possible to survive on your own terms. And that is I think, the most massive, it took me 2.5 to 3 years to get
Mm.
over that. And those were the scariest 2.5 to, I was loving narrating and I was petrified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the gift you're
Yes.
giving your kids. And that is massive,
Yeah.
massive gift. 'Cause-
Well, the thing my
Sorry, go
wife
ahead.
and I have talked about is creating that environment where they feel free to explore these things and not like,
Yeah,
okay, you have to, here's what you should do. Like, I don't really think that the word should exist.
yeah.
Because there is no, like, who's to tell me what I should do? By whose rules, by whose authority are you telling me that I should do this or shouldn't and or can't?
And you start telling yourself that later in life
You
if you
do.
hear
It
it
becomes
enough.
ingrained. Yes, absolutely. And it
Yeah,
becomes a part of your living and the most important word in your vocabulary.
yeah. And
And
you don't enjoy your life because even things
no,
you love to do, you're telling yourself you should do it.
right.
Yeah,
But it's not even, you're not even telling yourself that. It's somebody telling you that through your brain.
yeah,
That's what's so awful about it. It's not something you are telling yourself that you want or should do. It's whoever,
yeah.
society, whatever it is. And I'm not suggesting anarchy and going crazy. Use your common sense, obviously.
No, but raising
But
your kids to be free adults is a
mhm,
big step.
just thinking for yourself,
Yeah,
pursuing your own passion is vital. Is what's going to keep you happy. And I think that's what so many people are missing. I have a friend I went and saw. I was away over the weekend, and they were struggling with this similar thing, and at a job they don't particularly enjoy. And I'm like, what is preventing you from exploring other options? And it was essentially fear.
yeah,
But
yeah.
there's nothing stopped. It's like, why don't you find else what's out? I mean, he's intelligent, qualified. There's nothing really standing in his way.
You're
But there,
brainwashed. You're brainwashed into
yes,
thinking, and they think they're safe. They're being made redundant. They're
right.
being given, but they still think that a company is a safe way. I remember sitting on the couch asking a friend, I don't understand. How do I make the money to pay the mortgage every month? And I'm just like, you
Right.
take this job, but okay, then what do I do the next month? But you're not guaranteed it when you're in the
Mhm.
corporate job either, are you?
No, you're
Right?
only valued until they don't need you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the minute in this day and age, you can't do three people's jobs because that's
Exactly.
the way companies are
Yeah.
going. So you, but your mother was a writer. Were both your parents? Did either of your parents have the 9 to 5 thing going on?
No, not real. Well, no, not really. My dad was a pastor. So he basically worked 24/7 because you're on call all the time. Uh, and they did call in him all the time.
Wow.
But no, it was, so he was a pastor. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a while and then, and a writer, and she had some other jobs outside the home when I got a little bit older. Um, yeah, very traditional upbringing.
I love that. I love that. I love, so this call, I got this picture of you as the 13-year-old building the studio and your two little kids like becoming like fashion and writing gurus and running the world in a few years.
Well, I hope they do it, you know, soon enough for me to retire and enjoy my life on their earnings in case this whole thing doesn't work out.
I know, if you've got nebulous goals, you don't have to worry. Your kids will be there.
Exactly. What are you, 6? Shouldn't you be working by now?
But
I've got
but
vacations to take.
I mean, I joke around with you about, oh, you've got an entirely different outlook, and I think but I'm actually not joking, because I think that I'm starting to think that maybe the reason I think the way I think is control. And as a narrator and talking to all these people that are like, I need this perfect. That's come up a lot, control, and you can't control it. I'm quite good at that. I can't control an audition. I can do the best I can. And even the big, massive publisher books get released, and I'm a listener. I've heard mistakes. You can't completely control art. So why do I think I need to control life? And I like the way you have an idea of the direction you're going in, but you don't feel the need to hold on so tightly. And you've succeeded in everything you've done. Except the music, but that wasn't your fault. It was your poor hand. But you've gotten there. So you didn't have your itemized goal with your check boxes, but you've ended up in the same place or where you wanted to be. So do you want to buy like a massive house? Do you have dreams about like a gorgeous place you're going to live and all that kind of dream?
Not really. I mean, that would be great. At least like my wife would like it. I would personally like a cabin by the lake with a studio in the basement, maybe. And that's about all I would need. But yeah. No, I don't really have particular monetary or materialistic. It's not that I'm not materialistic. I'm not trying to say that. I mean, I love money, love things, but that's not what I have in mind. I want to be happy doing what I'm doing when I want to do it. And if I can do that in a way that makes life, it increases the quality of life for those I love, that's a win.
Should do a podcast about that. I would so subscribe. Yeah. But those are good goals, aren't they? Happiness at the end of the day. And that's all in your control anyway.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and don't let somebody else define what happiness means for you.
Yeah.
Define it for yourself.
Now, I do feel kind of guilty because way back when someone had a question. Oh, question. This is Fiona. On your path to success so far, am I right that you and Fiona know each other?
I have no clue who this woman is.
On your path to success so far, is there anything which you would tell people not to waste their time on? Oh, that's a good one.
You mean in terms of specific things, like the type of thing you're doing, or steps to avoid, or?
I don't know. Fiona, are you in your pajamas, or are you happy to talk on YouTube?
No, I'm here. Like, all of the above, Craig. Basically, like, is there anything that you look back and you're like, you know what, I didn't need to do this, or that you learned from specifically that you say, next time if you had ever redo anything on your path, you'd say, I wouldn't bother with this? No.
And I'll tell you why. Because I learned from everything I tried and failed at. And I couldn't possibly go to tell somebody, don't do this or that, because I don't know exactly what their path is or what they will learn or not learn from it. So I certainly wouldn't try to control their journey that way. And if I'm looking back at things that even like terrible events, like in my past, like divorce and stuff like that, I wouldn't not have it back there, because it all had a part in getting me to where I am now. Change one little thing in the past, even the bad things, and that could have absolutely altered my trajectory. And I'm very happy where I am. So no, I'm keeping those bad, hurtful parts, because they're all part of me and my present world.
Oh, okay. So we've got another question. I know that I should think that way, and I totally haven't gotten there yet. There are things that I would like redo in a second. And I know it's wrong, but I know you're right. I know you're right. I wouldn't trade where I am now, but there's some things I kind of wish I could redo. There's a reason I'm obsessed with time travel books. Emma Faye, I know you've mentored me one-on-one a bit, but have you ever thought about teaching or holding classes or webinars? You have so much talent and knowledge, and I learn from you so often. Not to put
Um,
you on the spot, obviously.
it's crossed my mind. I just don't feel like I really have that much to offer. Like, who the hell would sign up for it? You know what I mean? It seems presumptuous. Seems presumptuous.
I just think you've got such a lovely, I wasn't joking about a podcast. You've got such a lovely mindset and way of thinking about things that I think we could all stand to be reminded of 24 hours a day when it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I would like tune into a podcast for that guy before I record and go in the booth like feeling like I could conquer it and accomplish it, because you have a way of, and I was right, and it's the impression I got of you, not knowing you, never having met you
Mm.
online, that you stand above and out from everyone else, not because of all the stuff you do, which is obviously prolific, but because it's like, oh, and he's a really nice guy. And it's like, why do I think he's a nice guy? I've never really had a whole conversation with him, but there's just something. I think you've nailed the authenticity thing, is what I think it is. Maybe it was because you didn't have TV growing up.
So,
But I think
or
that's
it's
what it
because,
is.
or it's because the president of the college stood behind me and embarrassed me every day at lunch. And I got over it.
No, I still want to punch him for that. But you do, there's, yeah, I think that mentoring any platform where you can share that, because people are all doing the whole, there's a famous guy, I'm not going to say his name, I don't want to get sued by anyone. Now I know this is on YouTube, but that has more the mentality I do. Reach for your goals. You got to wake up in the morning. And I mean, this guy wakes up like really early and you got to do this and you got to do that. And I get really fired up when I hear that. But I think more people could stand to listen to a guy like you waking up and saying, how are you all today? Okay, let's, what next step are you going to take, and be brave? And it's a bit different than what we're force fed 24 hours a day. And I like it. It's a message packaged in a way that's still success. You're not saying we should all just like sit around and be happy on our beige couches and like forget life. But it's success without the pushing and the
Well,
competition.
one thing I have certainly learned is how important it is, especially as us as artists, just to learn to be gentle with ourselves. Because we have such a tendency to be hard on ourselves. You didn't do that right. You failed at this. You didn't do that. You didn't get that part. Whatever. You didn't do as much work today as you thought as you should. But you are a person. Be gentle with yourself. Be nice to yourself. You'll actually get a lot more done that way if you're friends with yourself than if you're pushing yourself, because then you'll get to resent it and hate it.
How good are you at doing that? I mean, are you like quite good at it now, or is it?
It ebbs and flows, because I'm also human. And some days I'm really, and sometimes I'm really good at it. Like, you know what? Whatever. I missed a deadline. Sorry.
That's what
I'll
it
do better
is,
next
though.
time.
It's internal. You have everything you get is from an internal drive. I was thinking that the other day. Sometimes I can feel when it's too much external gratification I'm looking for. Get that audition, get this, get that, finish this, get that deadline, get their approval. You operate from an internal clock. You listen to yourself, you have an internal voice, and you go in before you go out. Maybe you said you were an introvert.
Yeah. But it's radical independence. And it's something that's pretty rare in today of social media, where we're kind of driven by likes and shares. We have kind of imported that into our daily lives in a way, and I don't think it's particularly healthy.
Yeah, it's the difference between being on social media too much and then when you've been sick or something, go in the booth, and that feeling when you've had a really good session in the booth and you feel strong. Whereas you're on social media too much, you don't feel strong, you feel weak.
Well, and if you go into the booth, you have a great session, you killed it, then you go on social media and you got a bad review. Guess which ones you're going to remember?
Oh,
The
yeah,
bad review.
I don't ever read my reviews.
Right. I mean, but that could be anything. It could be a
Yeah.
nasty comment somebody left.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I mean, that takes control of you, and that is what you remember, not the fact that you just turned in a finished hour that would knock the socks off anybody.
Yeah.
Because that somebody had maybe something nasty to say.
Yeah, I know. Mine, I think everyone has their Achilles heel. Mine are, how many finished hours can I do as compared to how many I should be doing?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And how many books I've
Yes.
got done? And yeah, we all have that thing.
Well, the other thing to remember too about things like social media is that it's a highlight reel. It does not show what has happened behind the scenes. We don't know the struggles that they only post the success at the end.
Yes.
So we don't know.
Nobody is really that skinny.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
And besides,
Craig,
we're the star of our own stories. So don't let other people take the star role.
especially in audiobooks, because in audiobooks you really are the star.
Exactly.
And all the characters.
Exactly.
So Craig, let's come to that time. Thank you so much for joining, but I'm going to hit you with,
oh no.
Please, can you say something to our YouTube audience that's going to maybe be watching this 30, 40, 50 years? Who knows, your adult children could be watching this. What words of wisdom would you like to leave us all with?
I would say, above all else, play the long game. It's not really about today so much, or even tomorrow. It's about years from now. You don't have to conquer everything today. And you're not anyone but yourself, so don't try to be. You are the best you. And that sounds so cliche, but it's very, very true.
I love cliches. I think cliches are fabulous.
They're cliches for a reason. They've been around a long time, and they make sense.
Yeah, exactly. This is the best call I could have had today. This is wonderful. And I'm glad you could all join as well. But Craig, I think you should be teaching and share some of that magic. Personally, I think a podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and for taking your time to be with us. And this was what I wanted to ask. Your book, is it on Audible? Any of the books you've written?
The best-selling series that I have, the Shelby Alexander series, all of those up until the last two, I think, are on Audible.
And you wrote them?
Yes.
We'll check them out. I'll link it on the YouTube video.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Craig. I hope you have a fabulous evening. Big hugs and kisses to your kids. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Thanks, everyone. It was wonderful to have you. You were all fabulous. Thank you, Fiona and SJ. Bye, guys. Bye.